everyone, my name is Anna and I'm a visitor experience assistant here at Guelph Museums. I'm super excited to share this video series with you because we're going behind the scenes to take a look at some of the coolest artifacts that we have here in our collections at Guelph Museums. Welcome to Collections Crawl. I'm back up at the top of the museum in the textile storage area today. I really meant it when I said that this was my favorite area of the museum. There is just something about clothing that people really wore in the past that makes history come to life. Real people wore these clothes. They worked in them and lived in them, they washed them and they loved them. Now you might notice that I'm a little bit fancy today, and I'm dressed up for two reasons. One, this is our last Collections Crawl video, and number two, it's because of the artifact that we're going to be taking a look at today, the beautiful 1920s dress that you can see on your screen. Now this dress is quite old and just far too delicate for me to be able to take out. It's actually in the drawer right behind me here. So I'm just going to show images on the screen, but don't worry, you're still going to get to have a really close look at this special artifact. And don't forget to follow along with our artifact worksheet as we answer the 5 questions about this dress. You can find it on our Museums Everywhere portal, as well as linked on this post. Number 1, what is it? This is a beautiful dress. I absolutely love this dress, not only because it has so many shiny beads and delicate silk, but also because you can really imagine it being worn and loved. Let's take a closer look at this dress though. Where does it look like you would wear this dress? Would you wear it to school or to work? Would you wear it to bed or to play in? Probably not. It's so fancy and delicate that you would want to save it for a special occasion. Clothes that were used for everyday wear don't actually survive that much in museums as much as fancy or formal clothes because they get worn out so much more easily. So this would have been a fancy dress for a special occasion. Number 2, who made it? This is a dress that we don't actually know too much about. So this is another opportunity for it to help us learn about clothing and the time period more broadly. Because there's no tag or label on it, we know that it was probably handmade, either by the person who owned it or by the seamstress who made it for a specific person. Unlike today, when most of our clothes come from a store that puts a label with the name of the store, the size, the materials, and the washing instructions, people in the past often had to make their own clothes. Or if they could afford to, they would pay someone else to make them for them. Even though we don't know exactly who made this dress, we can appreciate how careful and skilled they must have been to create such a delicate dress. Number 3, what is it made out of? This dress is made out of some extremely delicate and fancy materials. That's why I'm not touching it at all. This is a cream-colored silk georgette dress with a cream silk net overdress. Georgette is a kind of crepe fabric that's really light and flowy. It is heavily decorated with silver and black bulge beads and crystal seed beads. It's also decorated with some embroidery with metallic thread. That's definitely fancier than the thread we saw last week when we were talking about embroidery. One of the things that makes this dress so special is the materials. All of these were really fine fabrics for very special clothing. It also features a technique that I think is really interesting. Do you see all of the beadwork here? Rather than put the beads on one at a time, which would take an extremely long time, many beads would actually be strung on one thread and then tacked repeatedly onto the dress by hand. This made the process quicker and all of the beads added weight to the dress. The rest of this dress is so light and flowy that the beads would actually add some weight and help the dress to keep its shape when someone was wearing it. Beading patterns were even available in magazines. You could make a dress like this at home using a pattern traced from a template or a transfer. Because this dress is made out of such delicate fabric, it has special storage requirements. It's much too delicate for us to put on display, and it can't even be hung up. That's why it's in the drawer behind me. There is also some damage to it already. Sometimes this is unavoidable, especially with materials like silk. Because of the way that old silk was made with metallic salts, as the threads weaken and age, the sharp salts in the fabric act like mini razors and slice apart the delicate threads. That's why it's so important that we handle it as little as possible and protect it from the light. Number 4, when was it made? This is my favorite question to answer about this dress. This dress is from the 1920s. That's 100 years ago. Fashion was an important part of the culture of the 1920s because it was changing so much. More people had more money than in the past, the First World War was over, and women had gained the right to vote and were working outside of their home more than ever before. This time period was known as the Roaring Twenties. The shape of this dress, the fabric, and the techniques used to make it were all extremely popular in the 1920s. Young women wanted to wear clothing that was less restrictive and more fun to let them move around more easily. They especially wanted to be able to dance in it. Jazz was the new hit music, and people wanted to do the Charleston. Number 5, why did the museum collect it? The museum actually collected this artifact way back in 1952, before there was even a building for the Guelph Civic Museum. We know this because of the accession number. I think it's really interesting because that's only 30 years after this dress would have been brand new. That would be like us collecting something from 1991 today. But we actually love that. We want to collect artifacts from all time periods, from the recent past right up to today. This dress gives us a really good sense of the style and fashion of the 1920s. And the 1920s was all about fashion. It is one of the most iconic decades in the last century. And it's really fun to think about people in Guelph during this time period having a good time, wearing beautiful clothes like this, and dancing to the most popular music of their age. I absolutely love the fashion and the style of this time period. The world was going through some big changes and clothing was a part of that. Now we've all been through some big changes in the last year or two, but I've got a really fun way to celebrate like they did 100 years ago in 1921. Put on your favorite music and your fanciest outfit, just like mine here, and have a dance party in your own house. For a real 1920s feel, have a grown-up help you go online and find a great 1920s music playlist on a website like YouTube or Spotify. You can even find videos of how to do the Charleston. Hopefully we'll all be able to have a dance party with all our friends again soon. Thank you so much for joining me as we go behind the scenes into the museum's collection. It's been a blast getting to show you some of the fascinating objects that we have. We hope you learned a lot and had fun too. Remember, if you have any questions about the artifacts you've seen, let us know. Send us an email or comment on this post. Thanks everyone.